Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. While 2016 was a successful year for Nedbank, its mining finance principal, Paul Muller, recently stated that South African mining had a tough year ahead, with Lawfare breaking out. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer explains. Welcome, Martin.
Hi, Sashnee.
Can you explain what Paul Muller meant when he said that Lawfare was breaking out?
Well, we're not talking about warfare, but we're talking about lawfare. And there are so many cases coming up, but there are also important cases that have taken place already. We had a Labour Court judgment which indicated that, the officials were using sledgehammers to break nuts, and then that was followed up by a High Court judgment which pointed to the irrational behaviour of the Department of Mineral Resources in the Aquila Steel case. So you have these two important judgments, and against that background, next month we're expecting another one. The Milan Scholes challenge on the mining charter. Now, Milan Scholes is a law firm that has been working on this for some time, and what its argument is that, the mining charter was never supposed to be a law. It was a policy. It was agreed to, and it was agreed to very convivially. I can remember the circumstances in Pretoria where people got around the table and they wanted to do something far better for BEE companies and enable them to enter the mining space at a huge discount. Initially, it was a very big discount. What happened was some of the people who obtained those shares at a very big discount then saw an opportunity to sell them off very quickly as the share price rose, or as the conditions were very favourable. We saw that in the case of Harmony Gold, where its BE partner just sold out at the top of the market, took that money and put it into other investments, many of them non-mining investments. It was on the basis that people thought, well, once empowered, always empowered. But that is not the case. The interpretation of the Department of Mineral Resources is that if your one BE partner leaves, another BE partner must take that place. That creates many complications, because it means that you've got to sell to a restricted buying public, and that means that your price is going to be lower, and then that makes it unattractive and it's unfair. If you've got these shares, you should be able to sell them to the highest bidder. So all sorts of anomalies are developing. So I think the next big one in this lawfare, as Nedbank is referring to, is going to be this one around the mining charter. And the argument is that this should not be enshrined in law. And will it be set aside? They're thinking that many legislative steps taken by the DMR lately could be set aside. Another is the joint one-stop shop, mining license and environmental law position, where they say that the redrafting of that set of legislation has been so poor that they expect it to be set aside. Then you've got the state of capture, and in the state of capture, at the heart of it is mining and the optimum colliery sale to Tegeta, and the way Eskom dealt with that, and the prepayment, even though this wasn't a cost-plus mine, led to a lot of angst and reference to it within the state of capture report. The expectation is that this is going to set off a whole new series of law challenges, and that is why they're using the word not warfare but lawfare.
Now, Muller has also said that the regulatory environment could worsen in the run-up to the 2019 national elections. Why is that?
There's huge divisions in the African National Congress at the moment, and by the end of the year there will be a new ANC president. At the moment it is Jacob Zuma. Now, although Jacob Zuma can't stand as President of the Republic of South Africa for a third time, he can really stand as President of the ANC, for ad infinitum, as long as he gets voted in. It's different to the country. And a massive fight is going on around who's going to get that post. One would have expected it to go to the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, but all sorts of spokes are being put in the wheel to try and snarl this up. At ANC level, there is clearly serious division, and you get attacks from the ANC Women's League, you get attacks from the ANC Youth League, even after agreement has been reached that there will be a moratorium on criticism and that they will wait until the election. Now this election is a long way off still. We're in 2017, it goes right to the end of the year, and then you've got to wait for your general election till around about April 2019, May 2019, June 2019. The chances are that the person who ends up as ANC president will also be put forward, for the President of the Republic of South Africa by the African National Congress. But if it happens to be Jacob Zuma who is put back into the ANC, of course there'll have to be someone else, because our constitution doesn't allow for a third term. So this is very unfortunate, because South Africa's economy needs its politicians to really be working towards growing this economy. They are not doing that. They are fighting for self-preservation at the moment. Many of them for selfish interests, it appears. And this is very bad on the citizens of South Africa. And the citizens of South Africa should realize that that is the top position in this country. Being a citizen is the number one position. And they should be realizing that you can be pushed so far and no further. And you need to resist very, very strongly. At the moment, it appears that the courts are running the country. Every time there is some sort of blockage that is preventing economic progress, it has to go to courts, and that process is long and it's arduous. And often you can see the outcome as being obvious, yet it takes years to get that obvious decision through, as we saw in the case of ICT, surreptitiously trying to seize part of Kumba Iron Ore, seize some of the shareholding of Sashnee asset, which is our biggest iron ore asset, getting in there, and then the department backing that, which appeared totally irrational, because where did this company come from? Nobody had ever heard of it. It's such a lightweight company, and yet they're trying to prevent the companies that have been doing this job for decades from continuing to be a shareholder. So it was fairly obvious that the courts would decide it's got to go to that original license holder, which the court did. But of course you had to wait for ages. That creates a lot of uncertainty. Kumba did carry on, and they did very well. But when the iron ore price dropped, they were caught short. And probably they wouldn't have been caught as short if they hadn't been distracted by all these illegal issues, which are often so illogical, but allowed to have a momentum by an errant Department of Mineral Resources.
Now, Nedbank has said that 2016 was a successful year for the company. How so?
And there you see what's happening with companies that are very South African orientated. They do their best to work in this environment. And this is the biggest environment in Africa for them. But if they can't succeed in South Africa, they look across the border. And there they pick up a lot of business. You can see these banks have got excellence. That excellence is recognized all over the continent. You saw them being involved in all sorts of project finance activities in gold and copper and industrial minerals throughout the continent, in West Africa, in Central Africa, Southern Africa, and Botswana. So, they can do very well, as you saw, the Nedbank CIB doing deals worth about 20 billion rand, and with companies listed on stock exchanges outside of South Africa, maybe with some secondary listings here. And they noted that, they can do well in Botswana, where the legislative environment is far fairer. The legislative environment in South Africa is unfair. The Department of Mineral Resources seeks to trip up people who are trying to do business here. That is unsustainable, and they have to be called to account. no matter who wins the ANC, they have to be called to account, because this is sabotaging the citizens of South Africa and the economy of South Africa.
Now, Section 11 applications of the MPRDA were dragging on for some companies. What are the effects of this?
This is serious, because now you get companies who need to sell their businesses. One person's meat is another person's poison. And you get to a point where you say, our strategy is to have this sort of asset and not that sort of asset. So you need to then sell the asset that is no longer part of your strategic plan. When you set out to sell it, the Department of Mineral Resources won't allow the sale to go through. Now, this is also going to lead to court cases, I'm sure, unless you are favoured, as we saw with the Optimum Colliery situation. How quickly did that go through? A matter of weeks. With other people, also in coal or other metals and minerals, how long does it drag on for? Months and months and months and possibly years. So what is the mentality of this department? What are its criteria? Is it fit to do this business? A judge has decided that it hasn't, and that was in the case of Aquila Steel, where the judge said, you people drag your feet to such an extent, you don't deal with issues for such prolonged periods, that I can't afford to let you deal with the awarding of these mineral rights to Aquila Steel, which has already invested over 150 million here and delineated a asset worth billions of rands, which you won't allow them to go ahead with. I can't leave that to you, because you've shown that you are inept, or you are deliberately stopping this. So what I will do is say, I will do your job. Don't do your job, I will do it. I, from the bench of the court, will award these rights. You don't have to do anything. And perhaps that's where the direction we should go in, because we know that in Chile, that's what happens. When you go for mining rights, you don't go near the government, because the government can have its favourites and it can have its subjective approaches, and we see that. We've seen it over the years, particularly in manganese, and we see Aquila Steel with manganese. There was a previous manganese situation where us as a publication, Mining Weekly Online, discovered that an official had taken the application of a very reputable company which was prepared to spend a lot of money here, even build a new city in Northern Cape, and they had a track record of building it for a long time. They took that application and he put it in the bottom drawer, because he didn't want to give it to that company. He wanted to give it to another company. An individual taking that decision. An individual whose salary is paid by you and by me for the betterment of South Africa, and he sabotages it, and he gets away with it. And when we were sitting in this environment where he didn't imagine that the media were present, and he revealed what he had done, because he thought the audience that was listening to him would cheer, because there were many people in the audience who would probably cheer. We, as Mining Weekly Online, were sitting there. So we came out and we wrote the story. He had the audacity then to threaten to sue us. And we said, do you want to listen to your own voice, because here's your tape? We never heard from him again. So it just shows you how treacherous this official was, and how ambivalent the Department of Mineral Resources is, and how errant its behavior is. And we see now, with Sibanya, the reports are that they have summoned the minister and officials in their personal capacities to pay compensation of 26 million rand in their personal capacities, because of the terrible way in which they deal with Section 54 stoppages, safety stoppages. Now that also comes from a recent court case from the Labour Court, because the judge there said these officials have been so errant that if you had asked me, if you had applied for them to have to pay their own legal fees, I would have considered that. So now the judges, the courts have opened the door. So the latest summons from Sibanya, according to reports unconfirmed, is that they are seeking this recompense from the officials in their personal capacity, from the minister in their personal capacity. And this sets a whole new paradigm.
Thanks for speaking with us, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Sashnee.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on South Africa's mining industry.